Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be doing an overview on the letter from the producer number 69. Nice. Even they tweeted nice. This was a really concise, short, sweet live letter. They knew they had already covered most of this stuff, so they re-elaborated on a few things. We saw a few new screenshots, and there wasn't really much to it. It also meant it went back to being 3 a.m., and we went back to needing translations. So thank you to the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord for doing unofficial translations, Illuna Minori and Miyuna as per usual. So I'll include a link to that in the YouTube video. That's the channel we always use for these JP only language live letters, and they have always been great to us, but they are unofficial. So please wait for the official digest to get any confirmation on the details that you are hearing here. So yeah, they even said right here at the beginning, not really any gameplay footage, what's coming in 6.1, whatever, you know, they just it was all pretty basic from there. So they started off by giving us the name for the patch, Newfound Adventure. Makes perfect sense. That was the theme they were running with from the previous live letter. So it's only expected that that would also be the name of the patch, if not the name of the whole new adventure that we're going on. They said it would also be a pretty generic name in the previous live letter, so not too surprising. We did not get an exact release date. We don't normally get an exact release date from these kind of live letters. The next live letter will give us the official date, but they did say mid-April. So based on the schedule update, my prediction would be the 19th of April, with Ultimate then following 2 weeks later, and then 6.15 another couple weeks later, and so on and so forth. Really like the new artwork though. That outfit especially is pretty good looking. You can see all the job themes from the previous expansions, and you've got more Dona in the background there. It's really good artwork. I'm a big fan. Moving forward, in April, there it is. It's a brand new story, nothing too fancy. New chapter begins in the main scenario. We get a nice picture of Tataru here, and some nice muffins, a bagel, a donut perhaps, but her shadow is ominous. I don't know, still evil. Still could be evil. One of the other screenshots with her later only makes me believe that even more. Then they just talk a little bit about this cutscene. You know, hopefully that tea's not poison this time. Istinian also gives us something. Most people said, oh, he's unemployed now, so he's doing maps. And no, I think that's probably an invitation from Rad's at Hand for like a celebration for the events of 6.0. So, because, you know, he's of course going to be helping Vritra over on the other side of everything. New side quests as well. We knew Tataru's Grand Endeavor was going to be one of them. That's going to be continuing throughout the entirety of the 6.x series. And that's going to be a great screenshot for memes. Let me tell you. That's going to be such a good screenshot for memes. Okay. Yeah. So then the additional role quest is also going to be available if you finished every role quest before 6.1, or I mean, before, you know, if you finish them all the role quests, the Endwalker role quest, then a new combined role quest will open up after 6.1. So don't forget about that as well. They're showing this here a little bit. You can see some of the characters that we recognize from the various quests, of course. So that's going to be a fun little thing to revisit. They're all over in Garlemald, as you can see. New tribal quests. So they're no longer going to be calling Beast Tribe quests Beast Tribe quests. They're going to be referring to them as tribal quests. Makes sense because they haven't actually even been Beast Tribes entirely for quite some time now. The Arcus Adara over in Rad's at Hand are going to be this one, and it's going to be for battle classes and jobs. So much like the Pixies, you'll be able to level with it. And man, Ivy, I can smell. So my cats are upset that I'm up this early. It's like 5 a.m. Ivy just took a fat dump. I can smell it from here. The door just creaked open because she's crop dusting that smell into my room. Love being a cat owner sometimes. Isn't it just great? But we're going to leave that in for the live letter fun. So you know what I'm dealing with right now. A lot of requests from this around the world. Oh, new Hildebrand adventures, of course. That's going to be a fun one as well. I don't see any screen. Oh, there it is. Somehow further Hildebrand adventures 6.15. And Hildebrand looks like in the Lakeland. So we left off in Stormblood with Hildebrand being pulled into the interdimensional rift by Gilgamesh alongside Nashu. And that's why we assumed he would be in Shadowbringers. It looks like they might be continuing that story with him in Novrant. But now, obviously, we're an Endwalker, so, you know, whatever. We're just going to be going back to the first. I mean, that just looks like Lakeland. So, I'm really excited about Hildebrand ever since Heaven's Ward has been an unplanned addition. They were only going to do them for A Realm Reborn, and then by demand, they decided to do them in Heaven's Ward, then by demand again in Stormblood. But they were always kind of playing catch up, like, oh, we didn't plan for this, but people said we should do it, so we have to start going through the usual process. This is, we took an expansion off, we planned for it, we have a full expansion's worth of Hildebrand quests on the side, so I think this one's going to be much better than our previous 2 expansions that have Hildebrand story quests, even if those had pretty okay stories as well, and some pretty comical moments. Talk about more of that in the next live letter, though. There's a lot of please wait for the next live letter in here, so I expect the next live letter to be pretty long. Yeah. How much dev team let out their humor? Hildebrand cutscenes are very heavy on our budget. So there you go. Yeah, and they were just like, everyone was always asking about him. Now there's another side story quest being added at sometime in 6.1x. They haven't decided yet when. Omega Beyond the Rift. So this is a follow-up to the Omega Raid series, and of course the MSQ in 6.0. So if you haven't done the Omega normal mode, go do that, watch the story. You'll be ready for whenever this releases in the 6.1x series. It's just side story stuff. It's not a raid or anything fancy like that. So maybe he'll be a bartender, who knows, or a bar ornament, who knows. Then they went into reminding us that they're going to be making some improvements to the main scenario quests. That includes the trust system being added to a bunch of the A Realm Reborn dungeons. They already detailed this in the previous live letter. There's some other adjustments, but they talk about them later in the live letter. There's a new dungeon, but they won't tell us the name because it's a spoiler. So then on that note, though, the new trial is the Endsinger's Aria, Endsinger Extreme. Probably going to drop item level 595 weapons, and they said 1 totem would not be enough. So you're probably getting, basically, he doesn't specify how many totems, but as is predicted, probably just means 2 totems per clear. Expect it to be an 11 to 13 minute encounter, which is on the longer side, so that's why we get the 2 totems. Let's see. People are good at these specific mechanics, probably not have a hard time. You have to look here and there and remember things it's on. Yeah, I mean, basically, if you remember normal mode, it probably won't be too bad. Unreal is returning. Ultima's Bane, we knew this already as well. Unreal, one of my favorite pieces of content to do. Not very much content out of the week, but it's been nice to me over the last several patches since we initially got it. And Ultima Weapon will be our first one for Endwalker. Looking forward to Ravana. Hope we get to Ravana sooner rather than later. New Alliance Raid Myths of the Realm. We got 1 screenshot of it, and I'm already excited just based on the 1 screenshot. Man, it's going to be nice to have a 24-man raid series again. Smile. Anyway, heavily delayed, but the next Ultimate is coming. Dragonsongs Reprise Ultimate. Drew. Welcome, Drew. They honestly, this screenshot they showed us over a year ago, and the only other screenshot they showed us was this angle. Which is just the same screenshot from a different angle. So that's what we get. Please look forward to it. That'll probably be end of April, early. It'll be 2 weeks after whenever the patch releases. But there is actually one other new screenshot that they showed us. That is Hraesvelgr with Neurolinks all over. So clearly they're taking some liberties with the dramatization of the events, because obviously we didn't fight Hraesvelgr in a I'm controlling you manner. Hraesvelgr fought us to test us against Nidhogg, before we went and took care of Nidhogg to earn our trust. And then afterwards they joined us for the battle. So clearly they're going a different route with this, with the neurolinking technology. Now, interesting thing enough, Thornton would have had access to neurolinking technology if he had succeeded, because he would have absorbed the power of the Triad and he would have had all of the Allagan technology at his disposal. But the thing is, for this, that would have to assume that Thornton did it, which doesn't make sense for Nidhogg, who then also doesn't have the neurolinking technology on. So I think it's honestly just a gameplay device to explain us doing both of these fights at the same time, even though it's probably not going to actually explain why Hraesvelgr is controlled. The big thing here is everyone kind of expects with an ultimate that there's going to be a gimmick. There's going to be, at this point, since Ultima Weapon, really. Even originally Ukab, the Neuralink positions played a huge role later on. It's not as flashy of a gimmick as the Unwoken mechanic, or as the Awoken mechanic, or as the Perfect Alexander mechanic, the Codex. But I have a feeling that this Neuralink is going to have something to do with the kind of gimmick that we'll be doing for this encounter. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have to make Hraesvelgr lose them all so he can empower us for the final phase with his eyes or something like that. Who knows? But this is going to be a phase, you know, 2 of the Dragonsong dragons up against us at the same time. So looking forward to seeing how they actually go about doing this. It'll be different to previous Ultimate raids. Weird, because they said the same thing about T, but really all that ended up meeting was the codex. Like, I don't know. They said things about T that didn't check out either. Of course they're different. They're different fights. But what they actually mean by that is it's too ambiguous to really dive into it. Now, I'm very interested in the fact that Mr. Osma designed this fight. Gets his nickname from designing the Osma encounter that you experience over in the Weeping City, or the Wiping City of Mach. And he is notorious for making easy to, like, casual to, like, you know, mid difficulty extremes that are very punishing. He has just worked on a number of projects that are not meant to be hyper difficult encounters. They're not meant to be placed anywhere that should really be wiping people all too often, but they often do. So the fact that he's now being unleashed into an ultimate encounter is a bit scary, but it also means it's going to be a bit fun. So thank you, as his proper name, Masaki Nakagawa, for your contribution to the Ultimate series. I'm looking forward to seeing just what you have in mind. Yoshida's already tested some phases alone, just, you know, with God mode on, etc. And then they're doing 8-player testing starting next week. It's difficult to make big changes since there's an ultimate. Talking about job adjustments. So we know that they're looking at Dark Knight feedback. We know Machinist, White Mage, and Dragoon are also getting adjustments. Dragoon's getting some animation lock adjustments, probably to Star Diver. White Mage, probably some very basic gameplay adjustments, much needed. And Machinist, probably finally getting some changes to Hypercharge, if I had to guess. Hypercharge or Wildfire. So those would be the guesses I would make. And whereas Dark Knight could be any number of things. It could be a full rework. It could be, it could just be major changes to things like Living Dead or Blood Weapon or something of that capacity. But because they're saying it's difficult to make big changes, we'll see. I would temper your expectations on how much change Dark Knight's actually going to see, because it's probably not a whole lot. They'll talk about that more next live letter. PvP is getting all its updates in 6.1, Crystalline Conflict, PvP action improvements and Adrenaline Rush actions, new PvP rewards, and the feast officially ending. We knew all of this already, but they're going to talk about it more next live letter, of course. Ameliance Levieur is our next custom delivery NPC. We learned this a couple weeks ago in the previous live letter. And she's wearing a butler outfit, so I guess that means we are going to be able to redress her up. So sorry, Fortunat, but your wife is now going to be our wife. So hopefully you understand. Plots opening for sale again. They've been over this a dozen times, so they didn't talk about it much at all. A reaffirmation of the calling card system, which is now officially being called Adventurer Plates. So basically, this is going to be... so unfortunately, they don't really describe it, so we're still kind of in a speculation territory here. But essentially, it's a new profile feature that you can customize with, you know, background art and a bunch of stuff. It sounds like Monster Hunter's calling card to me, but in Final Fantasy XIV, they've mentioned previously that while they initially designed it with PvP in mind, it is going to expand outward. It's not just going to be for PvP content. You're going to be able to earn different plates and different customizable settings for it by completing achievements from other content that's not PvP related. So it's really just a whole game thing. Now, for people wondering exactly how it's going to be implemented, we do have a little bit of detail here. They said that it's actually going to be, you can set an adventurer plate to your gear set. So your gear set can have a glam plate and an adventurer plate. So if you want to have like a warrior themed adventurer plate, you can set it to your warrior gear set. But then if you want to have something different for your healer or for your bard, so there's reasons to collect. It's highly customizable, highly like, you know, it's just another glam. It's another social feature. It's another representation feature that you can use to, you know, express yourself in the game. So I think it's going to be a cool system. Now, we're also getting the Unending Codex. This is actually going to be a key item that's given to us in the 6.1 main scenario, and is going to keep a log of the characters we meet, the events that take place. Think of it like, you know, we're going on a new adventure, so we've got this book to keep track of our new adventures. It's a lore book in-game, in all effectiveness. It's going to have a glossary of characters and terms up through patch 6.0. Not everything will be in there immediately, because it's a lot of text, but In-game lore references, awesome thing to incorporate, especially if you're someone who's forgetful or you want to remember certain things about characters or stories that you haven't seen in a while. This is your way to quickly get caught up in case there's something that you forgot or missed. So very much looking forward to that. 6.18, we're getting data center travel. We knew this already. They talked about it a little bit more in the second half, but mostly in regards to the JP data centers they talked about in the second half. If I had to make a prediction for 6.18, early July seems like a feasible place for that to be. But of course, there's always subject to change. That's just a prediction. Nothing set in stone. A few other smaller updates. New Game Plus for 6.0 and then some of 6.1. Probably just not all the little side features. Probably just the MSQ of 6.1. New Hrothgar, and even though it doesn't say Vieira, he does confirm new Vieira hairstyles as well. More glamour plates, 5 more glamour plates, and the ability to use them anywhere that has a sanctuary. So that's any place you can earn rested EXP, has the little moon symbol next to your EXP bar. That means you're in a sanctuary. Also, they said in 6.2, a few months down the line, they're going to be doubling the glam dresser from 400 to 800 slots. So a lot of new space. I think people at this point are probably going to want more plates than they're going to want slots, but you know, only because once they have 800, the plates are going to be the inhibiting factor with only 20 of them at the moment after they get this update. Now from your in-room, there's going to be a new feature as well. If you go to your bed in your in-room, you can actually look at items that are on the MOG station, and you can see how they would look on your character. Now they want to keep the online store, the Final Fantasy XIV online store, from being kind of a main feature that you can always pull up. You cannot purchase these items in game. It's not a menu that you can readily access anywhere in game. It is a very specific location, a very specific implementation, so that it doesn't feel like they're trying to encroach the online store into the game. It's a very deliberate choice. But you can now try on the online store items before deciding to purchase them by using the dream fitting thing here. It's just, they really want to stress they're trying to keep it out of the way. There's some other things as well, new idle animations for parasols. Ooh. Checkmark displayed on items like minions and mounts and other things that let you know you've already gotten them. So if you see a minion and you don't remember if you've gotten it already, or a mount and you don't remember if you've gotten it already, checkmark will tell you that you have. They're also reorganizing the market board so it's easier to purchase glam items like mounts, minions, parasols, things like that. So it's going to have new category in the miscellany section of the market board, excuse me. They'll show more of that in the next live letter as well. And that was it for the first half. Then they took a break. They showed a video from 2017, and it was cool, but we've seen it already. So that's all there was to that. And then, so now they kind of just go into elaborating on a couple of things. The trust system and the duty support system are actually going to be two separate things. The duty support system is going to be what we currently know as trusts going through the MSQ. So, you know, you get a few NPCs and they help you beat the dungeon alone, so you don't have to worry about playing with other people or queue times or any of that nonsense. But they said trusts will now be a term solely used for the avatar leveling system. That's like after you beat the story and you're leveling them up to get achievements or that alternate outfit. Nothing too fancy, you know? So they're just making sure to separate the two. Now, as a reminder, squadrons are not going away. And this is kind of, they talked about it last live letter, but we kind of see how they're breaking it apart a little bit more in this one. So the duty support feature will only work on main scenario 4-player dungeons and trials, and 6.1 only for patch 2.0 stuff. So any sort of side content, things like Halatali, Aurum Vale, Cutter's Cry, those do not support this system. And that's kind of shown when we see this other screenshot down here. You can see, you know, it has Copperbell, Sestasha, it has Tamtara, it has Ifrit, that's the level 21, that's Bowl of Embers normal, but then it skips the Total Rock. Now, the squadrons actually are only used in side dungeons, except for, like, I think there's like 1 or 2, like Brave Flocks is there, I'm pretty sure. So some dungeons are only doable with squadrons, some dungeons are only doable with these. So squadrons are not being phased out, they're not being removed, but they serve a completely different function than these characters do right here. Also, as you can see, Eager Conjurer, Eager Lancer, the NPCs available for each individual dungeon are a little different. You know, they show us later that Praetorium, for example, has Grand Company members. So what NPCs we have for each individual instance will be different. So bear that in mind as well. They are not going to be doing this for alliance raids. They are looking to do it for 8-player content that is part of the main scenario eventually, but not alliance raids. So those 3 alliance raids you have to do for the MSQ, those are not ever going to be supported by the duty support system, according to them. So that's pretty much all the details for that here. They even, again, remind us here. Now, there's a few things at the end here that they have to talk about separately. Castrum Meridianum, the Praetorium, and Porta Decumana, which is the Ultima weapon battle. We'll get into that momentarily. But again, you can see here that Ormvale and Samiel Darkhold are not on the list, among other things that are not on the list. So just making sure that's very, very clear. Another few things they're changing. They are making some dungeon changes. They had mentioned this prior. For example, in Total Rock, the ground effects will not slow your movement speed anymore. And in Hawk Manor, they're putting a teleporter in the bottom room after the second boss, so that way you don't have to use the return feature anymore. Very confusing to new players. Plenty of John Travolta memes with a new player inside of Hawk Manor, like, where'd everyone go? That won't be happening. Teleporter to take you back to the entrance now. Then there's the actual updates to the end of the A Realm Reborn MSQ content. Cape Westwind, in case you missed this in the last live letter, they did say this, is being changed from an 8-player trial into a solo quest battle. So you might actually have to fight him for more than 45 seconds now. Castrum Meridianum is being changed to a 4-player dungeon and is being streamlined so it's not as confusing to navigate. Now, Praetorium is being broken down into 3 different instances. First, the start of the Praetorium through to the Gaius battle will be a 4-player dungeon, which will also be supported by the duty support system. The Ultima weapon battle is a 4-player trial, also supported by the duty support system. And the La Habrea battle right after is a solo quest battle. So, stretching it out across 3 different instances, I think that's fine. I think that works pretty well. They actually use this exact structure for Endwalker. They did a 4-player dungeon into an 8-player trial, in that case, into a solo quest battle. So it's kind of just mimicking that already proven and successful layout, I suppose. Now, on top of that, you might be wondering about the main scenario roulette. Main scenario roulette is going to be changed to Castrum Praetorium and Porta Decumana, that's the Ultima weapon battle. But because they're 4-player dungeons, because the dungeons are being adjusted, they are going to adjust the rewards. Now, they don't make too much mention of anything else, such as cutscenes and cutscene skipping or anything of that capacity. I would assume cutscenes are still unskippable in the roulette. It's just smaller dungeons and whatnot. So there is that, I suppose. They're also considering making some changes for Thorn March from 2.1, but that's just a thought for the time being. Details for data center travel came right after that. Honestly, this mostly just talked about the JP data center changes. It reminded us that you can swap to other data centers within the same region. So, in NA, for example, when 6.18 comes around, you can transfer between Ether, Primal, and Crystal freely, like you would with a world transfer. Now, it does work a little bit differently, and I've been telling people it was going to work a little bit differently, but we have a more firm detail on it at this point. Also, when you travel to another data center, you'll be called a traveler instead of a wanderer. So wanderer for same data center, server travel, and traveler for going to another data center. Now, other than that, the restrictions that apply to you when you're on another world are pretty much similar to when you world travel now at your Aetheryte. When you go to another data center, pretty much all your social features won't work. Your free company chat, your cross-world link shell chat, your link shells, your PvP teams, all that won't work. You can't sell items on the market board, but you can purchase items from the market board. So all the same things, just now also cross-world won't work. However, in 6.2, they're actually going to make it so you can join a cross-world link shell when you visit another server, which will allow you to, if you have a static that's, for example, you're on Ether and your static is on Primal, you will actually be able to join a link shell with them for the next raid tier to make sure that, you have a more proper communication method. So that's good. That's coming at a decent time, and looking forward to it. Now, they also wanted to show how you actually do the world transfer. You do it from the character selection screen, which means, yes, you do need to log out of the game to do it. And it'll let you know what data center you're traveling to, what world you're traveling to, and when you hit confirm, this is very important. When you hit confirm, you are locked into your decision to visit another data center. It is then going to take time to transfer the data, and that time that it takes is entirely dependent on the congestion of the data center you are traveling to. Which means if you're trying to travel to a place that's heavily congested, it could take 10, 20, 30 minutes. Now, of course, if there's not congestion, it'll take you a minute or two at most to do the transfer. But the important thing is, once you press that yes button, you cannot back out of this. So if you suddenly decide, oh, never mind, I don't want to visit that data center, too bad. You'll have to wait till you get through and then transfer back like you just did the first time. So please, please bear that in mind. So with that, they then move on to, that's just detailing it more. Then they talk a little bit more specifically about the JP data center expansion. We already knew most of the details here. We knew they were taking 3 worlds and making it 3 data centers and making it 4 data centers, and then splitting the number of worlds evenly across all 4. The new JP data center is called Meteor, and it will be taking a few servers from each of the other data centers and adding them. Now, in this list, the green ones, the green servers are from Elemental, the orange from Gaia, and the blue from Mana. So these first 2 are from Elemental, these next 3 are from Gaia, and these last 3 are from Mana. They're color-coded on the screen here, but I'm colorblind, so I couldn't have told you that right off the bat. But that's just how that's going to work. We've had to deal with this already in NA, so we're pretty familiar with it, but JP is dealing with it for what I believe is the first time. I don't remember if they've had something like this in the past. But the new data center Meteor, after the regrouping, cross-world link shell chat may be available under certain conditions. They're just explaining how cross-world, how changing servers works. This is weird. This is one of those things they don't need to explain, but they do it anyway. It's like, oh, you know, if they transferred, then they can't talk in the cross-world link shell. Yeah, that's how it always works. Of course, that's how it works here too. There will be free transfers for the JP data centers when that comes around, so you know people might be moving around a little bit. After the regrouping of the worlds, the following incentives will apply. Players who own land will be reimbursed the full price. This is the same thing that we had for when the Aussie, the Oceania data center. It's not just Aussies, but most of my friends who are Aussie are the ones who talk about it. So that's all that comes to mind. The Oceania data centers, it's the same thing. It's largely similar incentives, just to make sure that you don't feel bad for doing your actual transfer. And that's it. That was it for the live letter. They remind us Little Ladies Day is from the 14th to the 31st of March, and that they are hiring French and German translators at the moment. The next live letter, they are not going to give us the exact date yet because, well, it normally determines when the patch date actually is. But that was it. Just really clarifying a few bits of information. I, of course, took the liberty to clarify some information during this overview as well to make the video a little bit longer. Apologies for that, but it's what I got to do to make sure there is as little confusion as possible. So I would predict probably the 8th or the 9th of April would be the next live letter, so probably about a month away. So you got a little bit of time to stew and get your predictions and your tinfoil hats ready for the second part of the patch 6.1 live letter. But with that, that is going to be a wrap for my overview of the patch 6.1 part 1 live letter number 69. Again, nice. It's time for me to go play some triangle strategy. So those of you on YouTube, thank you for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And on Twitch, give me a few minutes to get everything settled, and then it's time. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care.